Douglas, what are you doing? Come on, Douglas, what are you doing? So now let's look at the room size. It's 41 foot on the long wall, and then the other wall is 40 foot, and it's a custom built room for the layout and being finished out. It has two entrances, a double door that leads in from an exercise slash workshop area, and then it has a single door that enters from the outside to a where the actual workbench will be for the person that owns the railroad. On this drawing here, the distance between each one of these tick marks is 10 feet, so I've basically divided the room up into 10-foot squares. Although features are drawn in this renderings, these are not the final details you'll see. And at this scale, it's very difficult to gauge the size of this layout. My first attempt at filling the space was not quite satisfactory, so this is actually the second drawing or set of drawings I did for this space. Although this is listed as lowest deck, there is a staging deck below this which will have a very large staging area for multiple trains. The CSX level contains a port and refinery area, a power plant that delivers toll to, and a junction with a branch line that connects the CSX deck with the Norfolk Southern deck. The branch line starts here and actually has a branch line off the branch line that crosses it over here. The branch line also has a yard that is along this wall, and this is also where the branch that goes to the coal mine and the coal flood tipple departs. The branch line will continue along this back wall where I see some very dramatic cuts and fills, a tunnel, and also a river crossing in the mountainous area of the railroad. The branch line is a helper district in this area and will continue its climb along this wall and eventually loop around this peninsula and make its way up to the Norfolk Southern level. The branch line enters the Norfolk Southern level here, and then the junction is here between the Norfolk Southern main and the branch line entry. The Norfolk Southern main will proceed along the back wall and then come up to a automobile assembly plant, which was a key industry the owner wanted. The Norfolk Southern also has a service yard, and this is basically to supply the cars and ability to sort for the industrial park. The industrial park is not fully designed out yet, as I have to discuss with the customer what kind of industries and businesses he wants served here. Let's go back to the first deck and talk about on the CSX level where the railroad comes into the scene and the port and refinery area. The CSX main line comes out of staging here and is actually still climbing until it gets to the wall. There will also be a backdrop along the back of here between the port side and this entrance from staging to hide the entrance. I envision a cityscape photo mural along this side of the backdrop. On this side of the backdrop, I envision either a port scene with a ship in the picture or actually build maybe a half cut of a container ship along with a port scene behind it. The port has this container terminal with 2 long tracks for loading containers and a container scenery, a large refinery complex with many set-offs, a import-export warehouse, and finally a lumber dealer. Next, let's take a look at the CSX yard and its design. My design of this yard is a yard that at one point was a very important yard that has slowly over time become less used, but still is there and supports the port area and also the industries along the line going farther west. To facilitate this look, sections of the track in the middle of the main yard would be abandoned, or either by showing the tracks without switches or the tracks being covered with weeds, or no track at all and just ties. Where the yard works its way around the corner, there would be an even larger section of abandoned trackage there also to show this effect. The yard has an engine service facility, but again, this would look like it had once been a major facility that has now been downgraded to secondary service. Another indication of better times would be a large brick industrial building in the corner that would look like it had been abandoned and is no longer being used. Next, we'll look at what I did to the back wall, which is where the receiving yards would have been. In keeping with the theme, the receiving yard also has an area down the middle of it that is abandoned where there used to be more receiving tracks. The owner may, in the long run, want to use all these tracks and not have them abandoned, but I was going for a scenery look for the time period that he had asked for. I've also added a maintenance away laydown area where you'd have rail, ties, other material that you use for track maintenance and just for another scenic feature. There is one more industry on this wall, and this is a carbon black distributor. I'll tell you a little secret here. Everything I've put in this thing so far is in the actual locations in Norfolk served by CSX or Norfolk Southern. You'll notice a road along the front of the layout where the intent is to have businesses behind the road between the rails and the road. And then farther as you go in the corner, you'll see a bunch of older homes, and that wraps it around the corner to the next section of the layout. Moving around the corner to the next wall is a 41-foot section where I added additional businesses to be served by the CSX yard. From the corner, there's a road on the front side of the layout that actually continues for a little bit, a couple of feet, and then actually crosses over behind the tracks as the tracks come out to go where the businesses are. As you move farther down the line, there is an industrial lead, and the first 2 industries are very large warehouses. The next industry is a Vulcan materials plant where you would have aggregate for both cement and road paving. The last industry along this section of track is an appliance manufacturer where coil steel cars would be used to offload the steel for the making of the appliances, and box cars would be loaded with finished appliances. The last detailed section that you'll see is the peninsula blob right here. This is where the track goes back into staging for the CSX side and also flips to the other side of the peninsula wall and goes up to the branch line. With 48-inch curves, the peninsula blob becomes very large, but that will allow a big access area in the middle of it and also allows much larger buildings. Since this will be a modern layout with much larger engines and cars, having the size of the buildings being much larger will help the railroad look more to scale. The blob has a coal-fired power plant which has an older section, a modern section with its scrubbers for coal, and a rotary dumper. On the other side of the blob from the power plant is a large Y. Here the CSX goes down into staging, and off to the upper edge is the branch line, which starts its climb here up to the branch line level. There's also a propane dealer located here, plus more maintenance away tracks for ties and ballast and material for the branch line. The branch line level starts at the other side of the stud wall, which has a very interesting detail, which we'll show on the detail page of a branch line, that off the branch line it actually crosses it right here. Next, we'll cover the branch line yard, which is along the far wall here in the picture. As described by the owner, the branch line yard was a place to swap crews, possibly bring power up from CSX level and split the trains or drop the trains here and have Norfolk Southern pick them up. Anyway, there's a large yard here, so you can be able to do whatever he does decide that scheme will be. It also has an engine service facility for the branch lines, and it also has a quarry, which is one of the other businesses or industries that he asked for. One of the other items requested was possibly a coal mine. So this branch line actually has a branch that comes off at the back of the yard and runs along the back of the wall, back down to where it came through the stud wall and goes to a mining community. As the coal branch comes out of the corner, it's been climbing since it left the yard, and then it crosses over the main line here with a very nice river scene that I think will come out very nice when we get this part of the railroad done. The coal branch cuts through a ridge after it goes over the main line and starts the rest of the coal branch. As the coal branch comes out of the tunnel, it goes into a 3-track yard. The whole purpose of this is to provide a space so that the flood loader can have long trains go into it and go into the flood loader line and go wrap around the peninsula, which we'll see in the next view. On the other side of the neck of the peninsula is a typical tipple type coal mine, and below that is the actual coal mining village. The coal flood loader uses the peninsula for its loop track. It goes through the stud wall around the outside of the blob, over a river, and then to the flood loader itself, and meets back almost to the same spot where it goes through the stud wall to start the loop. The rest of the branch line track goes on the outside of the blob and moves its way around the blob until it gets over to where the mining town is. Next, we'll go over the Norfolk Southern level. The branch line comes out here, and the Norfolk Southern western end goes into its first level of station here. Both of these would come out of typical railroad tunnels. The branch and Norfolk Southern join at this wall, or have the junction at this wall, with a couple of extra service tracks here. The Norfolk Southern track continues along the back wall of the room until it gets over to the right corner where there is an auto plant. Almost the whole right wall is the auto assembly plant. There's tracks for loading finished vehicles. There's the fabrication plant where boxcars full of sheet metal and frames and stuff will come in. There's a plant, another set of doors and tracks for offloading engines and plate glass and other things. I also added a plastics plant, or a plastics stamping plant, as part of the auto plant there, to give another type of load that goes into the auto plant. The auto plant does have its own yard with probably a dedicated switcher to work the auto plant. Due to the length of the wall, there was another ability to put a river scene in here for him. He wants those, and then also another location for another industry, which is yet to be determined. There's also a Norfolk Southern yard in this level, which would have engine service facilities and also be used to service the industrial park, which is not really detailed in here, and I didn't draw a detailed drawing until I get better understanding of what kind of industries he might want in here. The industrial park would be located in the blob area where there'd be ability to put a myriad of trackage going in different directions here and give us some kind of visual complexity. The remainder of the Norfolk Southern trackage would go from the industrial park up into the upper level of stacked staging for Norfolk Southern. Because it is on the upper level, I chose to use that blob to put both ends of the Norfolk Southern station, one stacked on top of the other. These would actually be quite high. The track going to the upper station would actually go above the double door jam. So this will be the end of the design I did for this man's layout. I enjoy designing layouts, and this has actually been quite a fun escape. There's probably a lot more detail to go into it. I can usually see some pretty good scenes coming from the rest of it on the upper level in Norfolk Southern. But as time goes on, hopefully I'll be showing you pictures of this thing being constructed. Thanks for watching.